Some people have joined the party rather than coming here. But then, people who are here are more special, I believe. So, a warm welcome to all of you to the 57th rare share from the House of Aurangabad Management Association. Thank you very much to our each and every audience who has ever met to this program. Something which started off in 1977 from the enthusiasm of entrepreneurs of Aurangabad has reached up to this level, and it was only the last rare share. I myself on this dais said that Aurangabad Management Association's rare share have now uh, reached to a level wherein we are also getting speakers not only from outside Aurangabad but from outside India too. And today is a rare share. We have a speaker who has come to address us right from United States of America, and during his very short and busy schedule, he has agreed to address our gathering here today. So, on that note, I thank you to our today's speaker, Mr. Uday Joshi, who has agreed to share his story with us. Uh, I would now welcome our today's speaker, Mr. Uday Sharat Joshi, and our today's guest of honor, Dr. Aparna Kakkar, along with our other dignitaries of Aurangabad Management Association, to please come over the dais. As a customary practice, I will request our chairman, Shri CP Tripathi sir, to present a floral welcome to our today's speaker, Mr. Uday Joshi. I now request Dr. Sunil Deshpande of Aurangabad Management Association to present a floral welcome to our today's guest of honor, Dr. Aparna Kakkar ma'am. We also have a very special guest amongst us today. So I request Mrs. CP Tripathi ma'am to present a floral welcome to our today's speaker's mother, Mrs. Suman Saras Joshi. Today's rare share also happens to be special in one more way, and today we have a very special person who would be introducing us or taking us through the introduction of our today's speaker, and that is none other than our today's speaker's mother, Mrs. Suman Joshi, to take us through the introduction of Mr. Uday Joshi. Ma'am, please.
Hello? Hello. Yeah, you can hear me, right? Yes. Namaskar Mandali. I am going to speak in Marathi and English, both at the same time, only 2 minutes, because he is the speaker today and he has a lot to say, I know that. And what I wanted to say, how I understand his work, and right from the beginning, his nature was healing himself and healing the world. But now it is really he is making it happen in his work. So I have seen him right from, of course I have seen him from birth. But that is his thing right from the beginning. So I just wanted to say you something. The way I understand this is this, that our body is holistic, individual body. If one part hurts, the whole body knows that part hurts. The same way in the community, everything has a body. Community has a body, family has a body. So if something hurts there, the whole thing hurts. And that is your experience. I'm not saying there's nothing scholarly about that. And then the same way with community, whole world, global. So our motto always is, and he's the way I see it, and I have seen him in different cities and different countries, act locally, but think globally. And that's who, to me, Uday is. He always acts wherever he is comfortable and he starts acting. Whatever he sees, he starts to see his own healing and everybody else's healing. That's all I want to say about him. And you will judge, you will know what he gives it to you. And hopefully you are going to give him a lot and he will give you something. Okay, thank you very much for listening.
I now request dignitaries to please occupy their seats among the audience. By telling you something about our today's speaker, so that you have a proper orientation and hang about what you can expect when he starts speaking. So, ladies and gentlemen, he is an alumni of Cornell and Harvard University. Though the domain in which he has studied is a pretty difficult task for me even to elaborate over here, because it is a kind of an alien topic for me. But what I have understood is he is more onto the something which has got to do with creativity, dramatics, and something like that. And without any much ado, I would request him to take over the dais and take us through his story.
Port Elizabeth, weather fine. It was business as usual in police room 619. Oh, Biko, Biko, Biko's Biko. Yila Maja, Yila Maja, the man is dead, the man is dead. This is a line from a song called Biko by Peter Gabriel, a musician that has been on the front lines of human rights for decades, and often uses his music to shine a light on pressing social issues. In this case, it was apartheid in South Africa in the 1970s, and Stephen Biko, a black civil rights activist that was found brutalized and dead in his prison cell in Pretoria, but I'll have more on that later. You know, when you prepare for a talk such as this, you are questioned, and then you start to question everything about your work, like, am I rare? And do I really have anything to share? Just be at the top. And for those of you who are artists, or live with someone who is, you know that we are very emotional. So this talk I started to write and I threw it out several times in frustration. But the great thing here is that in Aurangabad, I have heard about many inspiring programs in India, such as the Sancheti Academy in Pune, the Creative Arts Institute there. And also, I had the honor to meet Manjusha Roth, who works with music, movement, and healing. Some of you may know her. She might be here tonight. And with differently abled young people. So I was inspired once again. But today, I'm going to keep it simple. And as I think Dr. Deshpande sir was a little nervous about an artist understanding the purpose of this talk, I'm going to follow a very set pathway. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, my process, and my work, and why I believe it is critical for the health and well-being of our global community. And in fact, I believe it is this creative exploration that is often the only source of hope that many oppressed individuals and communities possess. I'm going to talk about the central idea that every individual has the human right to explore the creative side of their lives. And furthermore, the only way you get to know some of their stories, the oppressed people in this world, is through the arts, in order to truly know their stories. And after the end of this talk, you can decide for yourself whether this journey has been rare, and if indeed I should have shared. And there is so much that I want to tell you, and I know I can't tell it all. So let's consider this the beginning of a story that is still unfolding. Let's consider this from the beginning. Just a side note, Marathi fakta thoda sa bolto. I wrote this out. Pan samasta. As my parents spoke primarily Marathi at home when I was growing up, so I'm familiar with phrases like Zapun, Saukash, Zal Zal, Are Atta Zal na. And I am, thank you very much. And I'm actually extremely familiar with Ara, Are Hekaye, Asaka Sakai, and Hey Barabaranae. So if you have that reaction in the audience, I'm going to know what you're talking about. So, for the purpose of this talk, I'm obviously going to speak English in my mother tongue, as I am the first generation Indian American, and that is where this story begins. When you look back on your life, it all seems to make sense. I come from a family of creators, a family who have always been able to create hope from hopelessness, faith when everything seemed far away, and love in places that were overwhelmed with hate. Basically, I adore my family, or at least I have come to realize that now. And I'm not just saying this because my mother is here. I actually believe this. I was born in San Antonio, Texas in 1972. I am the son to Sharad Gopal Joshi, who was born and bred in Nagpur, India, and Suman Ganekar, now Suman Joshi, of Dharwar, India. I didn't say that right. I was raised in a very traditional and non-traditional family at the same time, in the 1970s, in New York State, in America. It was just my brother and I. We were the only youth of Indian origin in my entire neighborhood for a while. So at a very early age, I came to learn that there were definite differences between people. In America, you know, there are people from all cultures that surround you all the time, but it just so happened that in some of the suburban areas in upstate New York, there were very few people of color, or minority people in that town. So I came to learn that there were differences between people and that we were not all exactly the same. I came to learn later that that's okay. Both of my parents were very well educated. In fact, my father, when I was born, was already a renowned endocrinologist, and my mother went on to be a senior education and social work professional at a school for autistic children for over 30 years in New York State. And while my brother went a very traditional route for Indian children growing up in America, going on to earn his PhD in engineering and becoming a professor at the University of California at Davis in robotics and neuroscience, my path was almost just the opposite. I was still a straight A student throughout school, and I got 2 Ivy League degrees from Cornell and Harvard University, but my focus was on the arts and the education system, the creative side of life, because when I was growing up, my house was always filled with classical Indian musicians, as my father, a music lover himself and a musician in his own right, had a great passion for music and often provided housing for the Indian musicians that were coming to tour the United States. So I got to listen to Indian classical music oftentimes throughout the year until late into the night at a very young age. You know, they play until 5, sometimes 5 o'clock in the morning. I was usually asleep by the end of it, but I could hear it in my dreams. So I developed this passion for the arts at a very early age. The arts automatically became a place where I could make the greatest sense of the world. When I was singing or performing, I was connecting with myself, my community, and the planet in ways I never dreamed possible. It did not matter that I was confused about most things, that people didn't look like me or eat the same food as me at home. Because when you are singing together, or attending a performance together, or a talk together, your background seems to fade into the distance. The differences become less. In fact, you think about them less. When I attended my undergraduate program at Cornell University, I continued in the arts, but also developed a passion for learning about social issues and inequities. And it was there that I learned that there were severe inequities in the land of the free in the United States. And the United States were not necessarily completely united all the time. So you can see these parallel tracks emerging, a passion for the arts and a commitment to social justice. But the question became, how do these two things relate to each other? I mean, the advice I normally got from family and other Indian families in my community was, first get a real job. And then you can still have your arts on the side, you know, as a hobby. But being the baby of the family and very stubborn, as you will come to see, I was determined how to make both a career. So after my studies at Cornell for the next decade, I moved from successful project to successful project, luckily, including starting a home for severely abused children in Washington, D.C., and using the arts as healing in that home, developing a curriculum dealing with inequity and oppression for the 10th standard in the San Francisco, California School District, and then working closely alongside historian and sociologist Howard Zinn, who wrote a book, The People's History of the United States, which became one of my sort of Bibles if you haven't read it. It was a groundbreaking account from Howard Zinn about the United States told from the perspective of the oppressed people in the United States. The groundbreaking part of this was, as you can see, I'll get to that in a second, but you often do not hear stories from people that have no power. The powerless are normally voiceless. It's the powerful people that write the stories that you hear, and in that case, write history. In these years, I learned some things that continue to shape the person that I am still becoming. Arts are a powerful medium for healing for severely traumatized children and adults. There are multiple issues that are attached to people having and not having, and inequity exists in many forms. Racial inequity, economic inequity, social inequity, were all attached to several other issues such as healthcare and education. And again, the stories that were normally being told by the people in power were not being, the voices of the powerless were silenced. So it is my hope, and it was here, that the arts may be used as a natural vehicle to amplify and lift up traditionally unheard populations. And that's the track that I started on. So you'll see here, the great thing about growing up in a multicultural household is I came to realize that every global community has a rich arts and cultural tradition. And India, of course, has one of the richest arts and cultural traditions in the world. We know that from just look around anywhere you go here. And music is transformative. When you listen to music, you change. You feel something, even if it's disgust at times, if it's a song you don't like. You still feel something. And you can find artistry in all disciplines. The greatest scientists, I believe, such as my father, were also great lovers of the arts and had this artistic creative mind. It's how they were innovative. It's how they discovered new things in their own field. And not everyone is equal. Not everyone has the same opportunities. And arts hold a power, ultimately, as a great equalizer. Everyone can do art. Everyone has a voice, and everyone has a story. So these are the places that you'll see throughout the rest of the, continuing with this talk, that I will shift through, but I just wanted to show you on the map. Hopefully this will expand. So from there, I was invited to Oakland, California, where I was invited to join the senior leadership team of an arts and academic professionals that were starting a performing arts charter school, 6th grade through 12th grade. This would be in one of the most dangerous and violent cities in the United States, but a place where young people could experience a different sort of education. These were groundbreaking days in Oakland, California, because we were starting something in a city that wasn't ready for it at the time. Wasn't ready for it, meaning that there were other arts academies in the United States, but they were very rarely in poor neighborhoods. They were always, again, where the wealthy and affluent neighborhoods were. But here, Oakland School for the Arts was a place where the students would be accepted from any neighborhood in Oakland. They would have to audition, of course, but they would be accepted if they got through that performance audition. They would have all the traditional subjects like math, science, and social studies, but then the other half of their day would be dedicated to studying the arts. In the very first year, we were the only school in Oakland, California to have a 100% graduation rate and a 100% college acceptance rate. So after this work for a few years, and some of the most innovative work in the Oakland school system had seen in years, I was asked to sit as a Commissioner of Cultural Affairs for the City of Oakland, California, and work as a Model Arts and Education Director for multiple school districts throughout Northern California. And I was also able to start several campaigns through the arts, such as a Victory Over Violence campaign and Youth Arts Festival. And here are a few things that I learned there. Beauty can be found in the darkest places. You just have to know how to look for it. My mother and I were in Rishikesh for the first week that we were here in India for an Upanishad class. And one of the biggest lessons I remember is that one that knows he is connected to everyone and everything has nothing to fear and sees beauty everywhere he looks. Next, if you surround yourself with a dedicated group of individuals, together you can move mountains. You may not be able to do it alone, but find the energy of the people that are dedicated to the same thing you are. And they might not always come from the same discipline. We worked with psychologists and the police force in Oakland. We worked with all of the people that touched these young people's lives, and together we created this school. Also, it's important to know the ins and outs of the local government system. Local government is so important for educational reform and for social reform in general, but especially when you're trying to purport that the arts are going to have some effect on this. It's a foreign concept still to this day for many people. And you have to get major corporations on board for financial support. In other words, you should never think your work, no matter how frivolous it may seem to others, does not deserve a large amount of resources. I walked into the Kaiser Permanente CEO's office in Oakland, that's a healthcare provider in the US, and asked the secretary if I could talk to someone about a dire public health issue. And the next week I got a check for $50,000 to start the Youth Arts Festival that I called Arts Saves Lives. They couldn't back down from that. Which brings me to my next lesson. Even when you think you know it all, you don't. I learned that a lot of times. Get training and mentorship wherever you can find it. It's never too late to start. At any age, you can find additional training and additional mentorship from the people that know things that you don't. And if you can get it from the very best minds in your field at Harvard University, well, that's a plus, for sure. So I went on to get my master's in education, where I was able to work with professors from the Education School, the Business School, and the Kennedy School of Government to refine a strategy for creating programs based on the intersection between research, program development, and policy work, and all through a performing arts lens. Imagine that. Harvard actually has a department that does that now. So now, I'm going to move on to the next phase of my career, and then I'm going to take you back. The next place I landed was with a fellowship, a very prestigious fellowship, at the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts in Washington, D.C. Many of you may have heard of it. It's the national stage for the United States. And this will help you better understand who I am now and where I hope to go from here. So this fellowship was in performing arts management. The leader of the Kennedy Center at the time believed that we needed to train a new generation of arts leaders if we hope to keep the arts alive, especially in communities where that didn't have it before, and especially on an international large-scope level, which is where I'm going with this. It was at this fellowship that I fell in love with someone, but mostly my work, which is probably why that someone didn't really work out. But anyway, that was a little joke. But anyway, my first major large-scale project as a senior producer was called the What's Going On Now campaign. I'm going to show you a short clip on that.
It's such an honor to have been approached by Kennedy Center and honoring one of the great American artists, Mr. Marvin Gaye.
What Marvin Gaye did is that he did a massive love song for America.
Tonight, we are thrilled to be showcasing young artists from across the country who are using their art to answer the question, what's going on now?
We were walking to go see the Congresswoman to explain our What's Going On Now campaign, which is a tribute to Marvin Gaye.
Our education department has run this campaign working with her communities around the country and developing curriculum and challenging current students to submit in whatever art form they like.
I learned that the future's past is the present, where we all remain breathless for what happens next.
And what we did was we created a video and we wrote original music about the issue of poverty in the 60s and poverty now.
Kids nowadays need art. It gives you the opportunity to express how you feel.
My favorite part of the What's Going On Now campaign, the part of creation, where we can sit down and we can think about the things that we want to change in the community around us and how we can brainstorm ways to help make that change.
My name is Uday Joshi. And I was on the original What's Going On with my dear friend Marvin Gaye. And I just could not pass this up. You know, a lot of times kids don't get an opportunity like this. In a place like this, I just know that he would love it.
What's going on? 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 What's going on?
First project that I was able to be the lead senior producer on a national stage. We got to work with a lot of artists that really cared, and you found that there were a lot of major artists such as John Legend and others that really cared about the community and wanted to use their artistic voice to shed light on certain issues. This particular project brought together young people from 14 different cities across the US and connected them through arts and social justice for the first time. Our challenge to them was simple. Tell us what is going on in your community and use your artistry to do it powerfully. And I'm going to show you an example of this work at its very best from a student that came up through the programs that we have been running consistently now in many cities. He's using his poetic voice to tell the story of the schools on the south side of Chicago, a place you'll hear a lot about later because I ended up moving there, and is one of the many shining success stories of overcoming impossible odds to share the stage with Bill Gates on this particular day. This is his piece about the education system.
At 7:45 a.m., I opened the doors to a building dedicated to building, yet only breaks me down. I march down hallways cleaned up after me every day by regular janitors, but I never had the decency to honor their names. Lockers left open like teenage boys' mouths when teenage girls wear clothes that covers their insecurities but exposes everything else. Masculinity mimicked by men who grew up with no fathers. Camouflage worn by bullies who are dangerously armed but need hugs. Teachers pay less than what it costs them to be here. Oceans of adolescents come here to receive lessons but never learn to swim. Part like the Red Sea when the bell rings. This is a training ground. My high school is Chicago, diverse and segregated on purpose. Social lines are barbed wire. Labels like regulars and honors resonate. I am an honors, but go home with regular students who are soldiers in territory that owns them. This is a training ground to sort out the regulars from the honors, a reoccurring cycle built to recycle the trash of this system. Trained at a young age to capitalize, letters taught now that capitalism raises you, but you have to step on someone else to get there. This is a training ground where one group is taught to lead and the other is made to follow. No wonder so many of my people spit bars, because the truth is hard to swallow. The need for degrees has left so many people frozen. Homework is stressful. But when you go home every day and your home is work, you don't want to pick up any assignments. Reading textbooks is stressful, but reading does not matter when you feel your story is already written, either dead or getting booked. Taking tests is stressful. But bubbling in a Scantron does not stop bullets from bursting. I hear education systems are failing. But I believe they're succeeding at what they're built to do, to train you, to keep you on track, to track down an American dream that has failed so many of us all.
This was, well, as you might not know, this was a child that was almost out of school by the 10th grade. He entered programs that we created in the south side of Chicago, and now after graduating high school and entering college, he's on the same stage. Bill Gates speaks right after him about the education system in the US. This is one of the kids that will make it, who is now an education reformer. And he's using his voice that he before thought he didn't have. He got to discover that actually his words do matter, and people will listen if he's able to articulate them and able to share them with the world and given a platform to do so. And TED Talks in this case is giving a lot of young people an amazing platform, but this happens to be very special to me. So it was here that I also got introduced at the Kennedy Center in DC to two different models of practice. Great models of practice that I still use today in all of my work. One of them was through ArtsEdge, which is the digital learning platform for the Kennedy Center. And another is something called human-centered design that they started at a place called IDEO in the Silicon Valley in California. They just create original ideas, and they place people in the middle of their ideas. They don't put the technology first, they put the people first. And so it ends up that this human-centered design is a very powerful tool in any field. So if you haven't checked that out, that's something I encourage you to do at some point, no matter what field that you're in. But through ArtsEdge, we discovered that we can create sustained projects in multiple cities with multiple art forms using a digital learning platform. The 14 cities that we worked with in the What's Going On Now project were largely brought together online and through digital platforms, although I visited every city and did an initial introduction. After that, throughout the year, they were all creating these pieces together, yet in their own cities. And then they all came together at the end in DC. But it's a powerful tool. So we started thinking about how might we use these digital tools and media to inspire, connect future artists to each other and their audiences. The next generation of artists. The artists that are connected in a way where they don't worry about the boundaries that have been imposed upon them because these are tools that can free them from those. And how might we leverage the unique assets of, in this case, the Kennedy Center, but any major arts institution that's dedicated to this work. So I'm going to take just a few brief moments to introduce those two, as you'll see down the line that these are very influential in the design process. Firstly, this is like the most videos in a row, but after this will be less. I'm going to show you a quick video about the Kennedy Center and the ArtsEdge.
Must set the artist free to follow his vision wherever it takes him.
colleague, her name's Nui Hanskin, you wouldn't know her, she's in DC, but she actually started this entire program, the Arts Edge program, and she's been my greatest collaborator, and we're starting our next, or that'll be our 5th project together very soon. So then I started thinking again, as I was writing this talk, about what were the lessons that I learned from this period of time. I just lost my place. Sorry. And it really became clear that, again, arts can be a powerful tool for community transformation. And in order to be successful, you have to collaborate with people from many different fields. I'm going to really hammer this point home a couple times because it's the cross-disciplinary work is the only reason we could have gotten any of this stuff done. If we didn't have educators that were trained in curriculum design alongside artists and mental health professionals, for example, with many of the places we were in, we never would have made it as far as we did. And the new technology is a great thing. Technology in the arts is also a great equalizer. And I'll come back to those points again. Next, with these 2 models in mind, I was called to Chicago. And as you can see, there's a theme in my work. I end up going to the most dangerous cities in the US, but it's the place where it's needed the most. So I decided that I would take this opportunity to develop a project which I ended up calling Music Moves Chicago, based on the fact that music moves you, it moves the community and the planet towards a sense of wellness, a sense of togetherness. And I asked myself the following question. How might we create a program that uses the arts as part of an approach to help address intergenerational trauma? But first, we had to ask ourselves the question, what does wellness look like on the south side of Chicago? And what issues are we seeking to make a positive impact upon? When I try and sleep at night, I can only dream in red. The outside world is black and white with only one color dead. This is what the south side of Chicago looks like. This is what it looks like when I first got there. During school hours, most kids were hanging out on the street, completely uninterested in school and uninterested in anything because of the lack of support and services. Seemingly an impossible situation, but we thought that there could be another creative way to start to address this issue. So we had to think about, what does wellness look like? What does wellness look like for any of us? And certainly, what areas of wellness can the arts, in our case, support for the people of the south side of Chicago? And of course, this extends to everyone that we work with. And we found that the most, after an extensive literature review, like one would do for any research paper, we found that there was these 6 factors that were critical in a successful social issue designed program. And this has to do with emotional health, spiritual health, professional health, social health, environmental health, and physical health. These 6 things were indicators of whether your program would be successful. And in fact, you can take all 6 of these things in mind when you're designing your new program. You should at least be touching at least on all of them. Some of them, of course, would come to the forefront. So, with the hope of having the potential community impact, if you can address those 6 areas of individual impact, then we wanted to think of, how can we affect public health, public safety? How can we affect community organizing, develop community capacity, and then also develop some different research models that I'll talk about a little bit later. And I just want to take a step back and show you a map of Chicago. This was a map in 2010, a couple years before I went there, but I started doing some research in this way first. This is the racial distribution of Chicago. As you can see, the red dots are the white, wealthy neighborhoods and population. The blue dots are the African American, very much poorer neighborhoods. In the middle, that you can see on the side, if you've ever been to Chicago, that's where downtown finance, all the Joffrey Ballet, all the Lyric Opera, all the big arts places are in Chicago. So you can see that segregation is a huge thing in Chicago. In fact, you might put any city on this map and you would see a similar distribution of where certain people lives. In India, it might be along different lines. It might be the caste system, it may be other things. But in Chicago, it was definitely centered around, equity issues were centered around financial resources, basically. Wealth separated the city. Now these purple dots are where the arts institutions are in the city. So, well, this is Chicago. That's where the arts institutions are. Now this is where the black dots are where all the shootings take place in Chicago. This is the nonprofit arts. This is where the shootings take place. Pretty striking when you look at it in that way. Now, while I can't purport that there's a direct correlation or causation between the two, it's certainly correlated in some way. Even if it's a loose correlation, you can see that where the shootings occur, there's no arts programs. It's pretty clear. So we started to think about how are we going to develop this program in such a desperate area, in such a desperate situation, and we knew that we couldn't do it alone. That building stronger networks consisting of other nonprofits, community and youth groups, civic organizations, corporations and foundations, and other educational institutions had to be involved. So I formed this coalition on the South Side of people that were dedicated to helping the South Side. Providers of education, healthcare, law enforcement, to come together and think about what this work might look like. And we talked about a plan, and then we came up with Music Moves Chicago. And then we had to explain this work. This is the institute we had at an art space. As you can see, there's people from all over the city that we just put a call out, literally sent 100 emails out, and we had to do this event 5 times instead of just once because so many people wanted to attend, but we only had a certain amount of room. It was like this room, but we filled it 5 times. So it wasn't the desire that wasn't there, it was the coordination of all of these people and their efforts. And we knew while arts wasn't the only solution to this program, we knew that we had to have a seat at the table, and in this case we were convening the entire thing. So Music Moves Chicago, after talking to all these people, we came up with these 5 areas that we needed to address. We needed to teach the artists in the community about how to work with oppressed and traumatized populations. That's training that artists don't get. Teachers don't get that in most situations. They don't get trauma-based pedagogy and what that looks like in the classroom. We had to think about doing arts performances in their community. Oftentimes we send buses down to the poor communities and bus them to where the arts programs are, and then send them back. We knew that we had to create programs in the community by community members themselves. And we knew we had to nurture the next generation of artists and activists in those communities to move forward. Developing new teaching and learning models that place healing front and center. And again, focusing on research.
I think there's important work in these kind of communities, and every community really, is to get people to be their most authentic self.
Old Town School's new suite of arts and wellness programs and activities are purposefully and intentionally putting healing at the center.
We're in a place that loves music. It allows you to be a free spirit. And when you can touch being a free spirit, you can let go. And if you can let go, you can start to feel. As you start to feel, you begin to heal.
I was thirsty to get here every Tuesday. Then when I play the drums, then it put the rhythm all through my body. So now I want to dance. I just don't want to stop playing the drums.
If you're teaching violence, if you're teaching, guns and drugs, then they learn that in the same way that they would learn whatever the other content that we want to introduce. And so that's been true since the ABC song. It connects to you in a different way because of the emotional piece, and then it gets really rooted into you.
Just opening up the mind of the younger artists too. They don't know ways to be positive
and do their art and still be paid. Connecting them with opportunities to perform for colleges and community centers where there's actually a check attached to it.
Music Moves is also about healing the artists themselves, the next generation of artists, and also about healing communities. But it's also to let them know that there are organizations and people in the city that care about the positive work that they're doing and will support that work.
Okay, so that was the latest project that you heard about. But as you can imagine, this work's not an easy sell. You have to be able to really prove how this is going to help the community because there's only a certain amount of resources, unfortunately, and scarcity is a big concept in these communities. Everyone thinks that there's not enough to go around, that even the small organizations that raise a little bit of money to do their work have to go it alone. This idea of working together to solve problems is still very foreign in a lot of places. People have the idea that they have to protect what they have and not share it with anyone. Because if they can at least just help a couple kids, then at least they have something. But what we realize is if we share our little bit with someone else's little bit and someone else's little bit, all of a sudden we have a lot. And we can really impact a community in significant ways. So the lessons that I learned was that every community is different. We need to have global as well as a local perspective, like my mom said. And training and sustained support is the key to making this work. A lot of times we'll get grants to just do something for 6 months, or a grant to write one thing, or a grant to research something for 1 year. And then we do that and then we leave. And then the program dies because no one's there to sustain it. So sustainability is obviously a major issue. And so when we had to explain what we were doing to many groups of people, this is how I usually started my talks. We know our work does not and should not exist in a bubble. And we know we are all inextricably bound to all of Chicago's communities and to each other. And there are so many people, organizations, services, and sectors that work tirelessly to improve the health and well-being of our citizens. And like individual health, community health also needs to be addressed in a holistic manner, with coordination from across sectors and fields, including the arts. But what are the questions that we need to ask, and where do we even begin? I was asked when this program first launched by a reporter, and then subsequently by a social science journalist for a Harvard social science journal, what is the unspoken reality of resourcing the arts in oppressed communities? And this is what I replied. I didn't got published, thank God. The unspoken reality is that the systemic obliteration of the arts in oppressed communities, in the US communities of color, but across the world, all sharing a common trait, disproportionately poor communities, has been deliberate in many ways. The easiest path to subjugation is the elimination of the creative mind. It is our job as arts and social service providers and professionals to bring back this energy, this creative mind, this human right where hopes, dreams, and possibilities reside that makes change possible. And that means that when we are partnering with communities, we have to ask questions about what they need. We have to look at the whole community. The synergistic ecological system, because everything and everyone is inextricably bound. And here is the beginning, again, of this story of why I'm standing currently before you here today. Every global society has an arts and cultural tradition. The passing on of this positive cultural knowledge has always been inextricably bound to strengthening and building communities. I believe that every community has a human right to full participation in the arts and culture, to develop their community mind, that every community has this tradition, but not every community has the resources or opportunity to explore this creative part of their lives fully. That full participation in arts and creativity is not just a simple frivolous luxury, but essential to the development of a complete person. A person that might be able to use this part of their mind to rise out of their current circumstances. But achieving this will definitely involve identifying and removing obstacles to arts and culture programs, creating flexible frameworks that can be adapted to all communities, forming these synergistic partnerships that I was talking about across social sectors with a common goal of healing, And we believe that the connection of arts and creativity to community is indeed a public health issue. And in fact, public health universities across the globe have heavily researched this and supported this, this fact. So when I started this journey, I asked the question, what is the responsibility of larger corporations, governments, of all of us as a society in dealing with the redistribution of resources in an equitable fashion so that the poor benefit from the things that the rich do as well? We know that both directly and indirectly arts saves lives. I have seen it here, and I have seen it everywhere, every day. And we also know that radical problems will require radical creative solutions, engaging the creative imaginary of all of our global communities. And so, what was our solution? Not just mine, but a group of people. The next big idea arrived. What would a Center for Arts and Global Healing look like? And this is we're bringing it home now. And how might we connect these communities across the globe? We are in the midst of a global crisis where we feel disconnected from ourselves, certainly, but definitely from each other. And even as this world is becoming smaller and smaller, while boundaries are disintegrating around us, geographical and imagined, we have to move through a discovery of reconnection to ourselves and to each other, and we believe that an artistic answer could help with that. And that's where we came up with the Center for Arts and Global Healing. The arts move us, our communities, and the planet closer together. Let me show you. This will bring the point home for you. This is a group from Chicago called the Bucket Boys of Chicago. Some of my students. Where I was talking to you about the most desperate area of Chicago. And they started with a creative practice of just finding these buckets. These are workers' buckets. It might come up now. And using them as drums, as drum instruments. They actually are very accomplished and now have become very famous in Chicago. Many of you may have heard about them. In one of the most famous slums in the world, they started a music program very similar to the Bucket Boys of Chicago, where they took trash cans and started a drumming program just around that, similar to the way the Bucket Boys did. Boys in Chicago, who have somehow found a way to express themselves in creativity, who have gone through the streets and found these workers' pails that they started drumming on, learning intricate rhythms, finding a way to connect through that music, and then bringing that music to the streets. And in the same way in Mumbai, if these young people have found a way to produce rhythms on trash cans in one of the most famous slums in the world, Chicago South Side is one of the most famous in the US, then what is the vehicle for them to be able to play together? What would it look like if the Chicago South Side Bucket Boys played with the Dharavi Rocks drummers? That would be pretty incredible, and that's what the center hopes to create about, hopefully, between 2 and 3 years from now. We'll see those people playing together to realize that they are not alone in their struggle. So our vision, our mission is simple. The center will forge bold connections and brave safe spaces where people can build shared meaning and heal through creative experiences. Engagement in the arts allows individuals and communities to heal by bringing people together across boundaries, such as Mumbai and Chicago, bearing witness to the stories of these individuals that were never heard before through music, dance, theater, and visual arts, providing a space to see possibility where there may have been none before. Ideally, the artistic voice can and will be used for community-based social action and social good projects, performances, and events. There are thousands of arts organizations that are trying to use their practices to transform communities, but are largely ineffective in creating sustainable change through the work due to lack of a strategy and connection to others who have the same goal. We are hoping to change that. And we're hoping to spread through all these cities next. So you saw the map where I was before. this is what the map should look like in 5 years. Because no one can do this work alone. We are in this together, so if there is one lesson I can leave you with, it is to look for help in places you might have not expected. And above all, feel the music, the rhythm of your work, of your passion, and it just might move you to places you never thought you could be before. The arts are a great equalizer. Pay attention. You're not alone. You're stronger together. Everyone has a voice. Everyone has a story. You can blow out a candle, but you can't blow out a fire. Watch the flames begin to catch. The wind will blow them higher. And the eyes of the world are watching now. Thank you.
Thank you very much for an insightful talk. Something which was ours, healing from music, healing from art. Taking our heritage of healing from art, and if we can copy it again, I think it will be beneficial, and there is nothing wrong in copying something which is right. Yeah. So I think we can now open up for a couple of question and answers, if we have got them. Yes, sir. We'll get a mic.
What are you planning to start in India, Pune and Mumbai or Aurangabad? You have written.
Yeah, well, Aurangabad is because I'm here right now, so we're starting right now. But in Pune and Mumbai, it's just that the arts and cultural tradition, especially around social justice and social issues, are already there. There's a lot of people that are doing just incredible work through theater and dance and music that I happen to have a connection through the Kennedy Center and others. So it was a natural place to start. You know, you start in the places where you have success is the most possible, and then you're able to radiate out. So I'm looking for different organizations currently, not just me, but a group of people, are looking for organizations across the globe. The fortunate thing about the Kennedy Center is that they produce work from artists literally from almost every country you can imagine. So through the fellowship program there, even when I was at the Kennedy Center, I was able to help produce what they called Incredible India. It was their India festival at the Kennedy Center. And so I got to meet a lot of Indian artists at that time. So Pune and Mumbai were specifically picked because it was the corridor there where a lot of artistic work is happening.
Artists one part, but educating them.
Sound.
To social requirements.
Mic.
The work that you are doing there is to fuse together the system of education, the arts as a medium of trying to do all the healing, identifying social issues, all this you are putting together under one platform. So artists maybe we'll find, but how to bring them to this joint forum where they understand this can be a part of the healing process.
Right. Yeah. So what we're going to start with the artists that actually get it already, that have that capability, like the Mumbai group that I showed you. That group is up and running. They have a very strong sense of how to use their work for social issues and education. We're going to start with a group of people. You know, you always have to start with this nucleus of understanding, right? And we have to come up with this curricular design in order to, that is adaptable, as I mentioned before, to every community. And of course, we're going to have extensive training in all of these places. For people that are interested, we found no matter where we go, everyone's interested. And like you're saying, they don't necessarily have the skills to be able to do that or the training. So the very first thing after identifying the artists, like you're saying, plenty of artists, is to establish a training institute that will enable them to come together to learn about how to most effectively organize community through their practice.
And you have conceptualized this, where are you going to set up this?
Yep, I actually, yes, the institute that I ran in Chicago and the three institutes that I did at the Kennedy Center were all national, in that case, national platforms. But that model we're going to use to extend to a global network. In fact, I have curriculum already written that I can send out.
Thank you, Uday. This is Kishan. And something very interesting has been happening to me and all of us in last 10 days about the music. Particularly me, I'm a heart attack survivor. And the point you said that we are all connected is given in Bhagavad Gita. Sarva bhutastha atmanam, sarva bhutanachi atmani, ikshate yoga yuktatma sarvatra samadarshana. The same soul, the yogi sees the same soul in everybody, and everybody has the manifestation of the same soul. And that's happening to me. I'll just tell you what has happened in last 10 days. IIT Kanpur has done a research, and they have proved, on 20 students, Dr. Bharat Bhushan. And interestingly, I just talked to him about 7 days back. I'm from IIT Bombay. So we had a discussion, he has sent me his research papers. And Rag Darbari has been proved with the EEG mapping they have done. And there is a sort of firing of neurons, and the things are improved. And they found that stress level has come down. And that is Rag Darbari IIT Kanpur, and we can connect to them. I have been in touch with them. And just to start that process, I just made a small WhatsApp group, just today. So you see how things are connected. That is called music as the magic healer. And believe me, I have been not getting sleep. So a few days back, I got a small book. I don't know anything about raga, but I have been saying the music and Bollywood music and Marathi Natya Geet. And then I have a special sort of a thing happening to me. I have been chanting, reciting the songs in reverse, like Lekhe, Hak, He, Jehero, or Lap, Lap. All those songs I can recite in the reverse. And of late I was finding that I am slightly not remembering the names. I claim to be having very good memory. Sunil knows, he is my classmate, Sunil Deshpande. He is doctor, I am an engineer. So we don't agree with each other any time. Like statins, nobody agrees. I don't take any medicine for cholesterol, by the way. So, yeah, I'm the one. I never take any medicines. So just 1 minute I want to tell you, so that we can really integrate this, what IIT Kanpur has done the research, and try to make out a place wherein we can do something for the people like autistic students, children, and particularly cognitive impairments and Alzheimer. I find there is a lot of power of the music to you can really help the Alzheimer patients. Thank you.
Very good. Very good. So with that, I would now request our core committee member and our today's chairman and our guest of honor to please come over the dais. And I request our guest of honor, Dr. Aparna Kakkad, to take us through the summary of today's session.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Tripathi sir, for inviting me for such a wonderful event today. I must say that from all the rare share events that I have attended, this was definitely the rarest and the best of all. The cause of education has always been very close to my heart. Hence, I'm highly impressed by your academic achievements, Uday sir. But even more than that is the outstanding work that you have undertaken as a social entrepreneur and an artist. What I picked from your life journey so far is that grit and determination go a long way in defining who we are, and the one lesson that I have learned is that by staying true to oneself, values, and connected to the inner core always strengthens us and makes us capable of tiding all difficulties. Actually, this is what serves us as a compass in helping us walk the many paths we choose to traverse in our lifetime. Sir, your examples were many, but the best words that you said were art as a great equalizer. Everyone has a voice, everyone has a story, and definitely will remain etched memory forever. Thank you for sharing these beautiful reflections with all of us today, and we wish you more power and success in future. Thank you.
Good
Good evening. Thank you very much, Uday. It was something telling us what we should have known and what we know somewhere, but we really don't know. That's the kind of situation it is. We know, but we seem to don't know. That's the situation. And you touched upon something very, very relevant, very, very fundamental. And each word of yours has come from your wisdom, which you have acquired through the parental education. Yesterday, I was listening to this Indian Idol, and one mother said that initially I was hating that why my child is going for music. But today, I would like to tell every mother of this world that let your child do what he wants. Do not restrict him or her. And that's going to bring best out of him or her. And the way they have let you go, the way they have let you wander around and come to something which none of us could come by becoming engineers or by becoming doctors. We are somewhere lost. So it was something very valuable, as Aparna said. It is one of the rare shares that we had, giving different spectrum to our lives, different purpose to our lives, and all of us are connected, and let's not feel that we are separate from each other. And this message that he has given puts our community back into focus. And as Charu was telling, that something coming from the other side, no, it is gone from here and is coming back refined to us. and we are prepared to accept that refined version of our own culture. Thank you very much, Uday. I have no words really to thank you for what you have done for the community, for the society, for art, for education. And also wish to thank you for what you have done to us today, opened our eyes. That's something we can do, certainly, irrespective of what is the age and what you're capable of or not. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. We'll take 2 minutes more of your time. Yeah. Okay. I now request our chairman, Sri Tripathi sir, to present a memento of love and affection to our today's speaker, Mr. Uday Joshi. I request Dr. Ullas Shivurkar to present a token of respect and appreciation to our today's guest of honor, Dr. Aurangabad. Yeah. 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 It's a pretty long script, but make it short. Yeah. So I think Aurangabad now, out of all its achievements and specialities, Aurangabad has also started listing its name on the billboards of marathon world out there. And from this forum, I would want to tell that we have another very special marathon happening out here in Aurangabad on 3rd of February 2019, and the registrations are still on, right? Yes. Yes, and the registrations can be done on www.getgoing.com. So do register and subscribe in more and more maximum numbers that you can, and yeah, and of course, these marathon runners do love music there, and there will be a lot of music and running. So do run with the music beats there, and be healthy. And I would not subscribe to not taking cholesterol medicines for everyone. But if you don't want to take medicines, do run and listen to the music. Thank you. With that, I again wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year in advance. Have a great vacations. Have great vacations ahead. And thank you once again for all the audience making it over here, to our venue partners, Devgiri Institute, and the media partners, and everyone. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Smile. Say cheese. Cheese.